everybody. Welcome to this version of Pit Stop. Today I'm at one of my favorite places in the world, Fort McHenry National Monument and Historic Shrine. And joining me now, we just celebrated Defenders Day just shortly, and joining me today is Ranger Snyder, who's going to give us a little history. Ranger Snyder, before we get into Defenders Day,
yes,
let's talk the history of what happened here 207 years ago in September.
All right, so 207 years ago, September, there was a 25-hour battle here at Fort McHenry. The British fleet, 16 ships of the British fleet is out in the Patapsco River, 5 bomb ships and 1 rocket ship firing at Fort McHenry for 25 hours. 15 to 1,800 bombs and rockets fired within that time. That's one every 40 seconds.
Wow.
Now, so they're 4 miles away. I'm sorry, they're actually 2 miles away. Francis Scott Key is 3 miles away. Now, he's aboard a Baltimore merchant ship.
Okay.
He had gone out to secure the release of a friend who had been taken by the British. He and another man named John Skinner were successful in getting the British to release this friend of theirs, Dr. Beans. But they were told that because you have heard our plans for the attack on Baltimore, we can't just let you go and tell everyone what you've heard. So you will be detained until after we've taken Baltimore. So that's why Key is out there watching the battle. So he watches that battle from the very beginning at 6:30 on September 13th, 1814, for the next 25 hours at 7:30 on September 14th, 1814.
And then at 9 o'clock, he looked up and saw this gigantic flag, right?
Well, of course, he does see it. Now, he'd been looking for it throughout the night. Now, the flag that flew here during the battle was a 17 by 25 foot wool flag. Now, we have provided you today with historically accurate weather almost, because it rained very heavily during most of that 25 hours.
Wow. So between the rain, the fog, and the smoke, he couldn't see anything.
Absolutely. And because that flag, the storm flag, was made of wool that soaked up so much water, it was hanging limp against the flagpole, almost impossible for Key to have seen. And so the only way that he could tell that the Americans still had Fort McHenry was because the bombs are bursting in the air and the rockets are making the red glare. As long as the British are firing, he knows that Fort McHenry is still in American hands. So on September 14th, on that Wednesday morning at 7:30, the British stopped firing. And just about the same time, the rain had stopped. But Key is wondering, why have they stopped firing? What does it mean? Does it mean Baltimore's about to be taken? Is Fort McHenry still in American hands? So he and John Skinner and Dr. Beans and the other men on the ship are trading the spyglass back and forth, wondering who has Fort McHenry, and the only way they'd be able to tell was if they could see the flag, because the British had decided at 7:30 to send out the signals to all the other ships to be ready to sail at 9. They're going to leave.
Right.
But nobody told this to Key or the other men on that ship.
Wow.
So while they are trading the spyglass back and forth, they're asking each other, did you see the flag? I didn't see the flag. Did you see the flag? So in other words, oh, say, can you see the flag?
Oh, say, can you see? I got
right.
you. Okay.
So at 9 o'clock, the storm flag was taken down, and the large 30 by 42 foot garrison flag, the flag we have flying right now, was hoisted.
Wow.
Now, the flag was hoisted because it was 9 o'clock. That's what Army regulations said, that you hoist the morning colors at 9 o'clock.
Gotcha.
But at that time, Key is still looking for the flag. And just as that flag is to the top of the flagpole, the clouds from the rainstorm disperse, the smoke blows away, and to quote Key in the second verse, now the sun catches the gleam of the morning's first beam. In full glory reflected, now shines in the stream, 'tis the star-spangled banner. Wow. And Key then puts an exclamation point behind that to show his excitement, his elation that Fort McHenry is still held by the Americans and that they have survived this 25-hour bombardment.
Got it. So that famous poem
Yes,
becomes our national anthem. Now, just this year, we celebrated the 90th anniversary
Yes.
when it became the country's
Yes,
national
March
anthem.
3rd, 1931 is when it became the national anthem. We really didn't have a national anthem up until then. There were a lot of songs that were proposed for the national anthem, but no one could really decide. It actually took an act of Congress to decide that the Star-Spangled Banner would be the national anthem of the United States.
Okay, during the battle itself, while we're in actually where the fort is, how many men and women were set up here?
Okay, so in the fort were probably 200 to 250 men, and there were more men on the outside of the fort. There were about 1,200 men here during the battle, some in the fort and all the rest of them on the outside of the fort. And it's like I said, a very heavy rainstorm. And so they're out in this rain, probably cursing the rain, not realizing it's probably saved their lives because there were only 4 men killed and 24 wounded during that 25 hours.
And people, if they don't know the history, before they came up to Baltimore, they actually burnt D.C.
They had burned the public buildings in Washington 3 weeks before they came and attacked Fort McHenry.
Okay, so now you just recently on September 13th, 14th, and a week of this evening of 17th, celebrated Defenders Day.
Yes, sir.
What exactly is Defenders Day?
Defenders Day is a celebration of the fact that the Baltimoreans and the other people from the state of Maryland stood up to the British and actually defended their homes. The battle at North Point, which occurred on September 12th, the British were held up by the Maryland militia for 2 hours so they could finish the defenses around Baltimore.
Gotcha.
And so when the Americans retreated and the British came up to Baltimore to see, they saw those defenses and they realized they can't get around them without help from the Navy. So if the Navy can't get past Fort McHenry, they can't help the Army to go into Baltimore. So that's the main thing about Fort McHenry is we kept the British Navy from helping the British Army.
Gotcha.
And so Baltimore is saved. They sailed down the Patapsco River and left on September 16th. And then September 17th, Francis Scott Key, who had sailed into Baltimore the night before, comes out and he's got this 4-stanza poem that he shows Mr. Key, Mr. Skinner, and Dr. Beans, and one of his brother-in-laws who had been a defender here. And they go, it's 4 stanzas. And they go, you know what, Frank, this is because everybody called him Frank. Right. This is really good stuff. We should get this in a newspaper. And Key goes, you know what? You go do what you've got to do. I'm going home. I haven't been home for over a week now. Right. So they go and they find a 14-year-old apprentice at a local newspaper who prints out 1,000 copies of a handbill called The Defense of Fort McHenry. But it does say, tune Anacreon in heaven. Wow. So Key had that tune in his head because he knew everybody knew it. And it's handed out to all the citizens in Baltimore that day. And on September 18th, they come to Fort McHenry and start handing it out here.
So if people are watching this from all over the country and all over the world, tell them why they should come by when they visit Baltimore and visit Fort McHenry.
Fort McHenry is a very special place. It's a place where the odds were against us, very well against us. And it talks about how even when the odds are against you, you fight as hard as you can. You do everything you can to do what you need to do to survive or to succeed. And that is a part of the inspiration about what's here at Fort McHenry. That big flag going up after the battle, even though it was put up just because it was 9 o'clock, the people of Baltimore thought it was an act of defiance. The British thought it was an act of defiance. And so it's like showing, you know, we can survive. We can go through anything. And sometimes in life, that's what you have to do. You have to dodge those bombs or rockets.
When people visit the fort, they can actually help put the flag up and down. Is that right?
Usually.
Well, I know COVID's been
different. COVID's been a bit different. But usually, once we can get through all this, yeah, we always encourage people to help us with the flag.
The fort was shut down for a while, and the visitor center.
Yes.
Is things starting to reopen?
Things are starting to reopen. Most of the visitor center is open. The movie's available. There's most of the exhibits in Fort McHenry are open as well. And we're welcome for a visitation. Just our regular hours, 9 to 5 every day.
All right, well, Ranger Ray Snyder, I want to thank you for being my guest today here on Pit Stop. And like I said, if you visit Baltimore, make sure you stop at Fort McHenry. It is worth seeing.